Welcome. This is a product overview of ComplianceForge's Cybersecurity Supply Chain Risk Management Strategy and Implementation Plan, which we call the C-SCRM SIP. Over the next few minutes, we will walk through what it is, what problems it solves, exactly what is included, and how it operationalizes a supply chain risk program aligned to NIST 800-161. The C-SCRM SIP is based on NIST 800-161 Revision 1, the gold standard for C-SCRM practices. It is designed to provide a strategy and implementation plan. It comes in an efficient and professionally written format that enables you to hit the ground running, and it delivers immense time and cost savings, enabling your subject matter experts to fill in the details that only they know. Software and hardware supply chain attacks are now a top enterprise risk, and a growing list of regulations and contracts requires a documented C-SCRM program. If asked, could you show a strategy and implementation plan for managing supply chain risk, or is it scattered across procurement emails and vendor contracts? Building a NIST 800-161 aligned program from a blank page is a major undertaking. The C-SCRM SIP gives you a running start, an editable Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint documentation set that operationalizes a cybersecurity supply chain risk management program aligned to NIST 800-161 Revision 1. It gets you roughly 80 to 90% of the way there, and then you tailor the strategy and controls to your supply chain. As some context, risk management actions primarily exist at different business levels. At the enterprise level, the strategic level, you will find corporate-wide policies and a risk management strategy, including defining risk tolerance and risk appetite. At the mission and business process level, the operational level, you will find risk management practices and strategy implementation, with standardized processes for risk identification, risk assessment, risk tracking through a risk register, and risk remediation. And at the team, project and individual contributor level, the tactical level, you will find actionable practices on how to reduce and remediate risk. Evidence of how these risks are managed is often in the form of documented SCRM plans and system security plans. The reality is, organizations depend on a global supply chain to provide products and services that enable their strategic and operational objectives. Identifying cybersecurity and data protection risks throughout that supply chain is complicated due to the information asymmetry that exists between acquiring enterprises and their suppliers. Acquirers often lack visibility into how acquired technology is developed, integrated and deployed, and how the services they acquire are delivered. And acquirers with inadequate or absent C-SCRM processes may experience increased exposure to cybersecurity risks throughout the supply chain. As a visual, here is the supply chain, and the many points of weakness that supply chain risk management operations must consider. So what exactly is the C-SCRM SIP? It is an editable Microsoft Word document that is intended to operationalize a program that can enforce security across your supply chain, your service providers, vendors, and contractors. It is based on NIST 800-161 Revision 1 to develop a program that can apply across the entire organization. The text for specific flow-down requirements identified in the C-SCRM SIP can be used in a contract addendum. It includes a SCRM plan based on both the NIST 800-161 and DoD formats. It addresses the how questions for how your company manages risk with third parties, since managing third-party risk is now a common requirement in statutory, regulatory, and contractual obligations. And it helps provide evidence of due care in how your company informs third parties about their cybersecurity obligations. Suppliers, integrators, and service providers are in scope for C-SCRM operations, where that term includes original equipment manufacturers, vendors, contractors, consultants, and other entities that make up the supply chain. The scope includes all entities that transmit, process, or store your organization's or its clients' data, that manufacture products or product components used in your operations or products, or that provide services for your operations or service offerings. Product highlights include country-based risk guidance to determine minimum management decision levels for contracting with suppliers from countries that pose a legitimate threat, a prioritized supply chain implementation plan with mappings for NIST 800-161 controls to each implementation phase, professionally written, editable documentation that leverages industry-recognized best practices, and example flow-down contract requirements for suppliers, vendors, and subcontractors, spanning DFARS and CMMC, ISO 27001, NIST CSF, NIST 853, FAR, PCI-DSS, and the EU GDPR. The first step to address supply chain risk is to let your vendors know what is required from them. That addresses due care. The next step is to hold your vendors accountable to meet your requirements. That addresses due diligence. You owe it to your clients to ensure your risks are addressed across your organization, and that is where the C-SCRM SIP helps. One of the most important points to remember when it comes to compliance is that if you cannot prove you are compliant with documented policies and standards, then your business will be unlikely to count on business insurance to cover the expense of a breach. The C-SCRM SIP can serve as a foundational element in your organization's cybersecurity program. It can stand alone or be paired with other specialized products ComplianceForge offers. This product is a one-time purchase of editable Microsoft Office-based documentation templates. There is no software to install, no agent to deploy, no account to provision, and no cloud environment to configure. If your organization can open and edit Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint files, the C-SCRM SIP is ready to use. It is delivered as fully editable Word, Excel, and PowerPoint files, compatible with Microsoft 365, OpenOffice, LibreOffice, and Google Workspace. The PowerPoint is used for executive briefings of the C-SCRM strategy. Documentation is delivered via email download link within 1 to 2 business days of purchase. There is no installer, no license server, and no activation step. A single entity license is included with purchase. There is no recurring subscription requirement, although an optional update subscription is available. This deployment model is intentional. C-SCRM documentation benefits from being in your organization's own hands, inside your own document management systems, rather than locked inside a vendor's SaaS tool. Once delivered, this product belongs to you. Procuring information and communications technology from suppliers establishes a direct relationship between those suppliers and the acquirers. But commercial products are typically designed for general purposes for a global market and are not tailored to an individual customer's specific operational or threat environments. The opaqueness of the components and modules that make up commercial off-the-shelf products creates its own issues. The C-SCRM SIP helps solve 4 problems. The first is a lack of in-house security experience. Writing security documentation is a skill that many good cybersecurity professionals simply are not proficient at and avoid at all cost. The C-SCRM SIP is an efficient method to obtain documentation to build a C-SCRM program. The second is compliance requirements. It is becoming increasingly common for organizations, regardless of industry, to be required to govern their supply chain for cybersecurity and privacy threats and risks. The third is audit failures. Many organizations run into trouble in audits when asked how third-party or supply chain risk is managed, since they cannot provide documentation beyond policies and standards. The C-SCRM SIP addresses the how for you. And the fourth is vendor requirements. It is very common for clients and partners to request evidence of third-party cybersecurity governance. The C-SCRM SIP provides this evidence. The C-SCRM SIP addresses supply chain documentation gaps with specific, measurable outcomes. The first is clear documentation. The C-SCRM SIP provides the documentation to prove that your vendor compliance program exists. The second is time savings. It is a semi-customized solution that requires minimal resources to fine-tune for your organization's specific needs. The third is alignment with leading practices. The C-SCRM SIP is aligned with NIST 800-161, the gold standard for supply chain risk management practices. And the fourth is a prioritized implementation plan. The C-SCRM SIP contains 24 prioritized implementation phases, mapping NIST 800-161 Revision 1 controls. This prevents rework during control implementation by sequencing the work into a defensible order of operations. So what do you actually receive? The C-SCRM SIP is delivered as editable Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint documentation. Purchase includes a single entity license and the first year of product updates. The Strategy and Implementation Plan itself. The core editable Word document with the strategic framework, scope definitions covering suppliers, integrators, and service providers, and the operational structure for governance. The 24 prioritized implementation phases with mappings for NIST 800-161 Revision 1 controls to each phase. The country-based risk guidance, refined by the Special 301 Priority Watch List, the Corruption Perceptions Index, the Notorious Markets List, designated state sponsors of terrorism, EAR and ITAR restrictions, and hostile data localization laws. And the SCRM plan templates and SBOM guidance. Both the NIST and DoD plan formats, plus Software Bill of Materials guidance addressing Executive Order 14028, with flow-down contract requirements spanning DFARS and CMMC, ISO 27001, NIST CSF, NIST 853, FAR, PCI DSS, and the EU GDPR. Now compare that against the two alternatives for obtaining quality cybersecurity documentation. For your internal staff to generate comparable documentation, it would take them an estimated 350 internal staff work hours, which equates to a cost of approximately $30,500 in staff-related expenses. That is about 4 to 8 months of development time where your staff would be diverted from other work. If you hire a consultant to generate this documentation, it would take them an estimated 225 consultant work hours, which equates to a cost of approximately $68,500. That is about 3 to 6 months of development time for a contractor to provide you with the deliverable. The C-SCRM SIP is approximately 12% of the cost for your internal staff and approximately 6% of the cost for an external consultant to generate equivalent documentation. The C-SCRM SIP itself is $4,235. PDF examples of both the Strategy and Implementation Plan document and a summary of all controls applicable to NIST 800-161 are available on the product page, so you can see the quality and structure before you buy. So how much work is left for you? Here is the customization process at a glance. ComplianceForge aims for approximately an 80% solution because it is impossible to write a 100% cookie-cutter document that can be equally applied across every organization. ComplianceForge did the heavy lifting, and the remaining work is fine-tuning the C-SCRM SIP with the specific information that only your organization knows. In practice, customization is filling in the blanks, adding your company name and logo, which ComplianceForge applies for you before delivery, tailoring parameters such as supplier tiering thresholds, and country risk decision levels, naming specific owner roles, selecting applicable flow-down contract language from the provided framework examples, and removing sections that do not apply to your organization. If you want a hand, ComplianceForge offers optional professional services. They are not required to customize ComplianceForge documentation. The 5-hour bundle may be beneficial for companies that need some guidance on getting started with how to tailor their documentation. The 10-hour bundle is for companies that need additional guidance on tailoring their documentation to meet their compliance requirements. And the 20-hour bundle is for companies that need robust services beyond just 10 hours to assist in tailoring their documentation. Purchased professional service hours expire 120 days, or 4 months, from the time of purchase if unused. Hours are intended to supplement, not replace, your own customization work. There are more reasons to buy. The first is Strategic C-SCRM. SCRM Plan is a tactical deliverable. It documents what the organization will do for a single supplier ecosystem. The C-SCRM SIP is the strategic layer that operationalizes the entire program across enterprise risk, operational risk, and tactical risk. The C-SCRM SIP contains a prioritized implementation plan that takes the controls identified in NIST 800-161 Revision 1 and assigns them to one of 24 prioritized phases. This is designed to help prioritize controls and prevent rework during the control implementation process. It is one of the many helpful components that comes with the product, and it is available as a click-to-view example on the product page. Also shown on the product page is the Supply Chain Change Kill Chain, part of the supporting material that comes with the C-SCRM SIP. To properly manage supply chain-related threats, your organization must evaluate country-based threats posed by its supply chain. This review must cover the geographic concerns where your products, services, and support originate from or transit through. Within the C-SCRM SIP, the criteria for geographic-specific threat management is refined by guidance from the Priority Watch List and Watch List. The Corruption Perceptions Index. The Notorious Markets List. Designated State Sponsors of Terrorism. EAR and ITAR restrictions. And potentially hostile data localization laws. As a visual, here is the Special 301 Reports Priority Watch List, one of the sources used to set minimum management decision levels for supplier engagements. Executive Order 14028 on improving the nation's cybersecurity is the driving factor for application security within C-SCRM due to several recent high-profile cybersecurity incidents. It directs U.S. government agencies to develop plans to share threat information, modernize cybersecurity capabilities, and enhance software supply chain security. Due to the nature of how contract requirements flow down through the global supply chain, the ramifications of this executive order will be felt across all industries. The requirement that has the most potential to disrupt business as usual is the expectation that software and services will have a Software Bill of Materials, an SBOM. The C-SCRM SIP includes guidance to address it. Here is the Software Bill of Materials guidance at a glance. Some clarification on terminology. For the purposes of common compliance requirements, the terms SCRM and C-SCRM should be considered equivalent. Technically, C-SCRM is a subset of broader SCRM practices, and SCRM is a subset of broader enterprise risk management practices. Even authoritative sources like NIST, the GSA, and the DoD use the terminology interchangeably. As a visual, here is how enterprise risk management, cybersecurity risk, and supply chain risk management relate to one another. Finally, reducing risk is central to supply chain risk management. There is traditionally low-level, tactical risk, focused on weaknesses pertaining to routine systems and data. Mid-level, operational risk, focused on weaknesses pertaining to business process. And high-level, strategic risk, that impacts at an organizational level. Having a secure vendor relationship can address risk at all three of these levels. As a visual, here is the multi-tiered cybersecurity risk model, spanning the strategic, operational, and tactical levels. If you have any questions, please email support@ComplianceForge.com or call 1-307-241-8740. We've been helping organizations since 2005, and we are always happy to help.